Well, it certainly is not video games or distracting about failures. It's about protecting America in the Western Hemisphere. And if I was the murderous Castro, I would take Secretary Rubio very seriously. You know, there's a reason he wore that Nike jumpsuit on the flight to China, the same suit that Maduro wore. So I think it's a warning to the Cuban regime, and they should shape up and take a deal.
What do you think the end goal of the US is here? Is it bringing a former Cuban president to the United States, or is it affecting regime change in Cuba?
Well, you only have to go as far as reading the American national security strategy under President Trump. We are not going to allow continued instability and national security threats from within our own Western Hemisphere. You know, the Castro brothers wreaked havoc and destruction not only in Cuba but throughout Central America and across the globe, even as far as Africa. Donald Trump is not going to put up with that anymore. Certainly the Castro brothers were murderous. They remain in power. They're going to be brought to justice, and it's my hope that we will see a new regime in Cuba that will be better for its people and better for our security here in America.
But, Congressman, obviously, militarily, there was a success in removing Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, although some security guards there were shot. But isn't there a world of difference between Venezuela and Cuba? I mean, you're not old enough to remember, but the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's a much more militarized country than Venezuela.
Well, one of the great successes of Venezuela was getting Cuban agents out of that country. It was Cuban guards who were guarding Maduro, and certainly that is a regime that has brutalized its own people, taken away their freedoms for years. But, you know, this is something I cannot speak for Secretary Rubio, but obviously, given his background and his seriousness on this issue, I think the Cubans should take the indictment very, very seriously. And I think we can have a lot of confidence in this administration that they have a plan for Cuba. They executed in Venezuela, and I have every reason to expect they would be able to execute successfully in Cuba as well.
But what is the strategy? Because we heard a few months ago Donald Trump saying Cuba's next, and now we've had the indictment from a grand jury, and President Trump seems to be sort of dialing it down and being careful. What is the strategy here? Is there a great military plan waiting there, or is it a bit, well, this might make them a bit worried?
Well, the first part of the strategy is to bring people that have killed Americans to justice. You look at what the Castro brothers have done throughout their history, and certainly with ordering the shooting down of those American citizens some years ago. Americans don't forget. So the first part of the strategy is to make sure that justice is done. And the second part of the strategy is to make sure that we don't have nefarious elements involved in narco-terrorism, working with Russians, Chinese, and Iranians so close to our shore. So again, Cuba is in a very weak state because of the economic mismanagement. Their people deserve better, and I think there's a real opportunity here to finally rid the Western Hemisphere of this blight of this communist Marxist regime that has done so much to brutalize its own people and put America's national security at risk.
And might this have anything to do with, obviously, the midterm elections, some sensitive congressional seats up for grabs in South Florida with all those Cuban-American voters? Anything to do with that?
Well, I think, you know, the Republican vote in Florida is very secure. So I think this is a policy-driven approach. It has been decades in the making. And I think it has taken until now to a president is forceful and determined to defend our own hemisphere as President Trump. But again, this ties in with the administration's actions on narco-terrorists in places like Venezuela and off the coast of the Caribbean. And it involved getting China and Russia out of the Western Hemisphere. China, Russia, and Iran were all participating in the administration of Venezuela. That situation is much better off than it was a year ago for both America and the world. And we have an opportunity here with Cuba as well, too. Again, it is because of the mismanagement of that country by their own communist government that they are so weak. They've been brutalizing their people, and it has been a national security strategy for us. So I don't think it's about electoral politics. I think it's about America's national security and the world's security and doing what's right.
Congressman, great to see you in Capitol Hill. Thanks for joining us, and good night to you.